Globalization by Hodge. What is globalization? Those who approve of globalization count its contributions to include greater economic growth and standards of living, increased technology sharing, and more intensive cultural integration. Critics argue that globalization causes global recession, undermines wages in rich countries, exploits workers in poor countries, and gives MNEs too much power. International trade theories. Mercantilism is a theory that holds that the wealth of the world is fixed, and that a nation exports more than it imports, will enjoy the new inflows of gold and silver, and become richer. The theory of absolute advantage is a theory that suggests that under free trade, each nation gains by specializing in economic activities in which it is the most efficient producer. The comparative advantage is a theory that suggests that a nation gains by specializing in production of one good in which it has a comparative advantage. Those three theories that I just talked about are the classical theories. The theories I'm about to mention are the modern theories of international trade. The product life cycle theory is a theory that suggests that patterns of trade change over time as production moves from new to maturing to standardized stages. The strategic trade theory is a theory that suggests that strategic intervention by governments in certain industries can enhance their odds of international success. The last theory is the national competitive advantage of industries. This theory suggests that the competitive advantage of certain industries depends on four aspects that form a diamond when diagrammed. The four aspects include firm strategy, structure and rivalry, domestic demands condition, related and supporting industries, and country factor endowment. Two macro factors underlie the trend towards greater globalization. The first is the decline in barriers to the free flow of goods, services, and capital that has occurred since the end of World War II. The second factor is technological change, particularly the dramatic developments in recent decades in communication, information processing, and transportation technology. During the 1920s and 30s, many of the world's nation-states erected formidable barriers to international trade and foreign direct investment. International trade occurs when a firm exports goods or services to consumers in another country. Foreign direct investment, or FDI, occurs when a firm invests resources in business activities outside its home country. Many of the barriers to international trade took the form of high tariffs on imports of manufactured goods. The typical aim of such tariffs was to protect domestic industries from foreign competition. The single most important innovation has been the development of the microprocessor, which enabled the explosive growth of high-power, low-cost computing, vastly increasing the amount of information that can be processed by individuals and firms. The explosive growth of the World Wide Web since 1994, when the first web browser was introduced, is the latest expression of this development. It allows businesses, both small and large, to expand their global presence at a lower cost than ever before. In addition to developments in communication technology, several major innovations in transportation technology have occurred. In economic terms, the most important are probably the development of commercial jet aircraft and super freighters. As transportation costs associated with the globalization of production have declined, dispersal of production to geographically separate locations became more economical. In addition to the globalization of production, technological innovations have facilitated the globalization of markets. Low-cost global communication networks such as the World Wide Web are helping to create electronic global marketplaces. Efficient markets should be what every economy strives for. Essentially, the sign of an efficient market is where there is an equilibrium between what buyers are willing to pay for a good or service and what sellers are willing to sell for a good or service. Any time that you have multiple producers competing for a hold of the economy, that's a good sign for consumers, as the quality of goods and services often goes up as a result. When businesses started to venture across international borders, what they often did was introduce a new standard into the global marketplace. Consumers then had more options to choose from. When your economy depends largely on another country's economy, it is hard to imagine either one of the countries attacking the other. In a weird sort of way, globalization helped heighten world security. Although many Americans contend that their standard of living has gone down because of globalization, the flip side to this is that hundreds of thousands of people around the world now have jobs, have started their own businesses, and can provide comfort for their own families. Globalization has helped my small town of 5,000 out quite a bit. Within the last year, we have built a new state-of-the-art grain facility that created 20 jobs. This grain elevator will bring in farmers and truck drivers from miles away. We have also had people from India recently purchase a pharmacy. Interacting with them has been quite a shock for some of their customers. It has taken our community quite a while to get used to them and vice versa. Since we already had a couple of grain elevators in a pharmacy, the competition has been on the rise. Globalization really hasn't had that big of an impact on the organization where I work. I work for a locally owned CPA firm who deals with clients in Nebraska, Kansas, and Missouri. If a new CPA firm were to move to town, then we would have some competition. But for right now, there are two local CPA firms in my town, and I wouldn't say that we are a threat to each other. The things we need to keep up with are the rules and regulations that are changing on a daily basis, and make sure our customers are putting them to use as well. A trade bloc is a type of intergovernmental agreement, often part of a regional intergovernmental organization, where regional barriers to trade are reduced or eliminated among the participating states. The North American Free Trade Agreement is an agreement among Canada, Mexico, and the United States. When it launched, it was labeled one of the most radical free trade experiments in history. The Union of South American Nations is a regional integration mechanism integrating two existing custom unions, Andean Community and the Mercosur in South America. The Central America Free Trade Agreement is an agreement between the United States and 5 Central American countries, and the Dominican Republic. The European Union is the official title of European economic integration since 1993. It was an effort by European statesmen to stop the vicious cycle of hatred and violence. The European Coal and Steel Community Treaty was the first step towards what is now the EU. Every country in the world is touched by the globalization trend. In order to survive in the 21st century, companies in every industry are taking steps to expand internationally through trade and investment. And those companies that do not recognize this trend will likely become a fatality of globalization. Since 1992, major agreements such as the North American Free Trade Agreement, as well as 200 other lesser-known trade agreements, have been negotiated with the United States. They are responsible for substantially reducing foreign trade barriers, allowing U.S. companies to export more of their products. But trade agreements have affected more than just trade barriers. They have made a major impact on trade and investment worldwide. In fact, they are responsible for shaping business relationships among companies across the globe.